while I certainly understand everyone is talking about the conditions of the jail, Exhibit A is before you as to why it's unsafe. So, Judge, we're respectfully asking the court to deny bond. We believe that the defendant is a danger to the community, a risk to reoffend, and a potential risk of flight given the circumstances of his arrest on May 9th, 2022, when he fled the scene after a search warrant was executed.
The audacity of the Fulton County District Attorney's Office to make that a response to what we all know are the horrendous conditions of the Fulton County jails. The audacity. Diamante Kendrick is not Exhibit A as to why it is unsafe in the jail. The unsanitary nature of the jail is Exhibit A. Exhibit B is probably the ability of inmates to go in and out of their cells as they wish, even when they should be on lockdown. Exhibit C is probably going to be the correction officers that are allowing contraband and items that can be used for weapons to go inside the jail. Those are your exhibits. Those are your exhibits. And I just find it so problematic that went unchecked. I probably would have spent a significant amount of time responding to that statement because it just, it made my ass itch, if I'm being clear. It rubbed me to my soul. Diamante Kendrick is not the first man, nor will he be the last man to be held in the custody of a jail where violence is the only answer. The sad truth is that when you are in jail or in prison, you will at some point either be the victim of violence or the perpetrator of violence. And I don't know about y'all, but if I got to choose between the two, I'm not going to be a victim of violence. And that's just me keeping it a buck with y'all. I'm not going to be the victim of violence. And that is a very sad truth that it appears Fulton County does not want to take accountability for. But Diamante Kendrick did not create the conditions in which he was living in. He did not create those conditions. Point blank, period. And I'm going to leave that there. Now, the status of his bond situation, it was not denied. The judge essentially tabled it because, voila, we got a magical probation violation that did not exist while this RICO case was pending. I find it, I don't even know the right word to use. I'm just going to say problematic. I find it very problematic that there was never, and please correct me, somebody in the comments, if y'all have access to it, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was never an attempt by probation to violate Diamante Kendrick for the RICO case that he was just found not guilty on, for the unaliving that he was just found not guilty on, for the felon in possession of weapons that he was just found not guilty on. There was never an attempt to violate him. And let's be clear, you don't need a conviction to attempt or to begin the process of a violation of probation. You don't need that. We see that because now that he is on the brink of release, suddenly there's a probation violation for a jail fight and for possession of contraband. And I call bullshit. I just do. It feels, I think anybody within the sound of my voice could come to the reasonable conclusion that this is retaliatory based on the fact that they are not satisfied with him just walking away without any consequences. And that's just that. Those are just my honest feelings about it. Point blank, period. I also want to address Judge McBurney's comments about Yak staying away from the people that, got him in the situation that he was in. Yak was found not guilty. And I understand Kayla's position in not wanting too much to ruffle Judge McBurney's feathers because, quite frankly, I believe she was winning the argument. I think she made great arguments. She highlighted all the points she needed to highlight. And I think she was winning the argument. So I understand kind of why she did not address it, but I can't help it. I probably would have. He is not under any circumstances required to stay away from anybody. He has not been convicted of anything related to this case. And while I understand as a human why we might want to say that, I don't think it was appropriate for Judge McBurney to make those comments because, again, he is under no requirement at all. And none of the charges that he is pending or facing now relate to anybody that he was associated with as far as the YSL case goes. So I didn't like it. But I understand why Kayla didn't respond directly to that, because sometimes you just got to know when to fold them. And if you're winning an argument, you certainly don't want to put yourself in your client in a position that you're now losing. So I get it. I just don't know that I would have been able to not completely respond to that, because he's under no, in any circumstance, under any condition, is he required to stay away from anybody. So there's that, y'all. But I suspect that in the coming days and weeks, we will be getting updates, because the entire process, the entire interaction that we heard was just very unclear about what the status of this probation violation is. But like I said, I call bullshit. I do believe that this is an attempt to make sure that Diamante does not get to walk away without any sort of consequences for what they believe he did as it relates to the YSL case. On a brighter side, Shannon is probably on his way home at this point, because he resolved all of his pending cases. There are no holds. It looks like, according to Max, he is now going to be on 12 years probation, as opposed to the 5 that I believe we heard from Judge Whitaker. So some of his cases are running consecutive, which means they run back to back as opposed to running at the same time. So he's going to be on a longer form of probation. We also heard thorough discussion about staying away from Metro Atlanta, and what he needs to do, and what likely would happen if he were to be rearrested. So ultimately, he's done. It's over with as it relates to this case for Shannon. I, of course, wish him well and hope that he is fruitful and productive on probation, and that we never see him again, not as it relates to any legal case, period. I hope we never see him again.